Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Hiller, and welcome back to Next Level Leadership Conversations. We're having conversations with national champions, Division I collegiate athletes, Wuerffel Trophy winners, professional athletes, a group of highly accomplished people who have succeeded not only on the field in their sport of choice, but also in their community, in the classroom, and far, far beyond the game. The goal is simple: to help you get better not only on the field, but in your leadership and character far beyond the game. Today, my guest is a very special one. It's Danny Wuerffel. If you haven't heard of Danny, Danny was the 1996 Heisman Trophy winner as the starting quarterback at the University of Florida. He played under Steve Spurrier, had a tremendous career there, and in that famed 1996 year when he won the Heisman Trophy, they were also national champions. Achieving at that high of a level is super special and something that many of us aspire to. He even went on to play in the NFL after that for several years for several different teams, but now he's making an even bigger impact across the United States through his ministry called Desire Street, where he helps underprivileged youth and communities to achieve more with their lives as they resource and support those individuals in those communities. His story is really awesome. He's got some great advice for us. So come and enjoy this conversation with me as we talk about being others focused and serving others ahead of ourselves. Hey, Danny, thanks for being with us. We appreciate you joining this leadership conversation around being others focused and serving others ahead of ourselves. But before we jump into some of that, we'd love to hear your journey and your story briefly. We know about national championships and Heisman trophies and the Florida Gators, but walk us through your story briefly so we get to know you a little better.
Sure. Well, that's one of those big ones. You never know where to start. But I grew up, my dad was an Air Force chaplain. So being in the Air Force, we moved every 3 years. And I think for me, one of the things that really helped transition each time was sports. You know, playing sports, you immediately on a team, you make friends, and that really helped kind of me develop in those years. And I very fortunate. I ended up in Florida, Northwest Florida for my high school years. I had a great experience in high school, got to go play at the University of Florida, and was very blessed with a great career. Played there for 4 years, and then I got to play in the NFL for 7, and then have retired. And I work at a nonprofit now called Desire Street, where we work in the inner city neighborhoods, primarily in the Southeast, and have a wife and 3 kids.
That's awesome. And, you know, one of the things that we're talking about being others focused, I think like hard work, like sacrifice, like some of these virtues that we hope to aspire to in our character, I think being others focused and serving others is something we aren't necessarily taught in a classroom. We catch it by example. Is there someone in your life, maybe it was your dad as someone serving in the military, or someone else that you kind of caught this concept of serving others from? Who modeled that in your life?
Yeah, I think, you know, my dad's vocation was that as a pastor, and the way he kind of lived his life. My mom, I think, modeled this idea of her time, her energy, her talents weren't simply for her. I mean, she really gave up a lot to care for her family, and that has always touched me. And then different key people along the way that have been there for me, that have touched me in moments that sort of have reminded me to move forward. And then really, I think, you know, there's something magical when you go out of your way to do something for someone else, especially if it's out of the right motivations at the right timing, and you get this. I don't know if it's a sense of joy or peace or something, because you've connected with something that's really an eternal principle, sort of how we were hardwired to live, you know. And so I think throughout my life, the times I remember doing something like that or helping someone, I can remember being really happy with that. And I think that all those things were very motivating.
Absolutely. And as we talk about others focused, the way we're kind of defining it in this conversation for the young leaders listening is serving others ahead of myself, right? Serving others ahead of myself. So there's a concept of, obviously it's service oriented. It deals with putting other people before yourself, which we all know is a challenge. Let's put this in a sports context for these young athletes, maybe their families, coaches that are listening. What does that practically look like? And I think some of it centers around being a great teammate. What do you think some of those things look like in practice from all your years of experience?
Yeah, I love that illustration there. I mean, I think we all realize if you're on a team and you've got a whole bunch of guys, even if their talent is stellar, if they're really in it for themselves and they're thinking about their stats or their numbers or their whatever only, you're going to have a team that doesn't live up to its potential. And I've been on some teams on both ends of that. I've been on my high school team, we won the state championship against a team that was so much better for us player for player, but we were just an incredible team. We bonded together. And, when you put those around you and think about what they're going through, and, you may be frustrated with something, but, asking how are they doing? What's going on in their world, and just really sensing, and as you grow, it's not just your talents and it's your time and your money, how do you leverage those things, not just for yourself, but for those around you. And I think the extent that we do that, we all collectively are better. And there's no better example of that, in my opinion, than a team.
Absolutely. And you were part of some great teams at Florida, obviously a national championship team. There were individuals like yourself. You won the Heisman Trophy. There were individuals that won other awards for being stellar individual players, but collectively you won a national title under Steve Spurrier's influence. Take us inside that locker room. Division I athletics, that level of performance is something so many people wonder about, they aspire to. Take us back. Help us see some examples of being others focused within that locker room.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a key moment in our season. We were number one ranked team all year. We were really beating teams really by a lot of points. I mean, we're just rolling. And then we played Florida State in the last game of the regular season. They were, I think, ranked number 2. We were ranked number 1. And they beat the crap out of me. I mean, my dad said he counted 32 times I got knocked down to the ground. I don't know how that's even possible, but they beat us. Losing the last game of the college football season, you're really out of it typically when it comes to the national title. So there was so much discouragement. There was so much frustration. And I remember a few guys in the midst of their discouragement really going out of their way to lift other people up. And I remember seeing one of these guys uncharacteristically trying to get us ready for our next game when it didn't seem to matter. And that impacted me. And so then I realized that, maybe my frustrations, my emotions. And so I kind of joined in him and collectively we created this energy. We went the next week and we beat the team, Alabama, who was, I think, at that point then ranked number 2 behind Florida State. And then a whole bunch of things happened. We got a rematch with Florida State in the Sugar Bowl and beat them for the national title. And I think, when things don't go your way, it's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to get down, but it's contagious. It's infectious. And to have a positive attitude, even when it's tough, I think is one way to be an unselfish teammate.
Absolutely. And as I hear you talking through that example and those stories, it sounds like this is a choice. Would you agree this is a decision that's consciously made, that I'm gonna, in this moment, whether good or bad? I think it's easy to serve others and give when times are good and things are going well, but it sounds like you're saying this is a conscious choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really kind of where your energy and your focus is going. I mean, we clearly have feelings, we have frustrations sometimes that are beyond what we can control in that moment. But it's really kind of where you're setting the sights. Where is your North Star? Where's the direction? And I personally feel like we've got to, one, take care of ourselves. We have one body to steward. We have our lives. We do have to practice a healthy self-care. And I think what serving others doesn't mean that you don't be the best you can be, that you don't try to win, that you don't try to succeed, because I think that's part of our calling as humans. And so would never try to tell somebody, don't try to win. In fact, anyone that knows me knows I may be one of the most freakish competitive people that there is. I really, really want to win. But the point is, so often in our desire to succeed and win, we start moving to where it's at all costs, and then other people get kind of stepped on or stepped over. And I think that the goal is make your drive to success not just about you and for you, but how can you somehow in your pursuit of success also help others in their pursuit for success. And sometimes it's very, very simple, and sometimes it's more complicated. And when things are going poorly, we usually revert more to our basic instincts. So you've got to have a mindset that you've thought about, that you've prepared for, and recognize that, wait, this might be that moment where I really, really want to just do something for myself, or there's one thing left to eat, or one drink left, and I'm really thirsty, but I've got a teammate there, and I'm gonna offer it to them because I know it would be important for them too.
So to build on that, I think that's spot on. It costs you something, right? Is what you're saying. When I go to serve someone else and I put someone ahead of myself, there is a cost to me personally, but it's also worth it. So to talk to me about that, I mean, what does it cost you at certain times to serve and put that other person or that teammate first, or the good of the team first ahead of your personal goals? But then why is it worth it? Why should we do this?
Well, I think we all know that there's a lot of things that cost us that are worth it. I mean, who really likes running wind sprints? It costs you your breath, it costs you your comfort, it costs you a lot of things. But when you get to the end of the game, if you're in better shape, you realize it was worth it. Lifting, preparing, there's a lot of things that we do in life that are costly, but in the end are worth it. And I think this is one of those that it's a little trickier because, if it seems like there's one, cookie left and it's you and your brother, you want it. And if you don't get it, you're not getting the cookie, and he is. And so there's this sense that, if I don't get it, or if I let someone else have something, I'm going to miss out. And sometimes that's true. I mean, sometimes you really do, in different ways, try to take a limited resource or something and defer that. But I mean, I think there's other ways where, I remember times where I took over as a starting quarterback in New Orleans. And the quarterback that was ahead of me, Billy Joe Tolliver, he still was rooting for me, and he was older and he was training me, and it kind of didn't make any sense because I had just moved in to the spot that he had, and so in some sense my success might cost him the chance to get back, but for whatever reason, he supported that, and that has touched me, and it has impacted me and how I relate to other people. And so I think there's a little bit of faith involved that as you do serve others, you may not see that reward or that joy, or you may not see how it's impacting the world or yourself, and it may or may not, but somehow you believe that you've put something good into the universe, and then somehow that's going to make everything better.
Yeah. And so we have a lot of young athletes listening to this, and that's a great example of a great teammate. But, kids out there ages probably 9 to 18 that maybe aspire to accomplish some of the things that you did, that are, seeking to be starters on their teams, that want to be successful, and they're listening to this and they want to be better both on and off the field. So, speaking directly to those folks in that audience, these athletes, what would you say are a couple practical examples of what does this look like on a court, field, a mat, a locker room? And then what are a couple examples of what this looks like off the field, beyond the game, because athletics is this platform that can be used for good?
Yeah, well, I think we hit a few already as it relates to being a teammate. I think just to start by making an effort to pay attention to what someone else might be going through. You've heard this thing, what is it like to be in someone else's shoes? I think a lot of serving others starts with, are you paying attention to what it might be like to be someone else? What's their life like? You see somebody that may be acting a certain way, but what happened to them that day? What's going on at their home? What's going on in someone else's space? And so I think to pay attention, not just to kind of how I'm reacting to the world, but to take a few moments to think about how somebody else is, and that can play out on a team as well. But I love the question you mentioned about what does that look like kind of off the court or off the field. Typically, if you're an athlete, you've kind of accomplished in this game of life a space in society that has a lot of honor. To put it in younger words, you're probably popular, and there's a lot of kids out there that are struggling that aren't. And how you treat people that may not be in that sense is a big thing. So I think that when you have a platform as you get older, it may be if you have resources like money or talents that you have, how are you helping others that don't have the same opportunities or blessings or privileges that you have? And sometimes that's just looking at somebody in their eyes and smiling. Sometimes it's going out of your way to help somebody, paying attention for what needs or struggles someone's going through. And usually there's some things that you can meet pretty simply that don't cost you a lot, that make a big difference for someone, and just pay attention.
Absolutely. So kind of final word of encouragement here to all those watching today, all those listening, who really want to do this, live this out in their personal life, in their team, as an athlete, and then in their communities or schools, what's a final word of encouragement you would have?
I think there is this joy. I mean, some of the best moments of my life weren't just winning a Heisman Trophy or winning the national championship, but I can remember even more vividly when I noticed some things that were needs that people had around me, and went out of my way to help, and to see the impact of that and the joy that I have is very confirming that's a big part of the human journey. It's something that often gets set aside as we're pursuing our own dreams, but as we make the effort to not just pursue our dreams and be excellent and win and succeed, but help others in their journey and in their dreams as well, I think we touch something magical and everything's better.
Awesome. Danny, thanks for your time. You're such an inspiration to us. Thanks for being so other-centered yourself in your walk and your journey, and we just appreciate you being with us.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Keep up the good work.